Shalom, this is G Checker signing in, and this video right here is about full discussion that was had with Cherry Love on her channel, and it was we had a few different topics, and one of the topics was Gentile, and the other topic was the olive tree. Okay, so basically, what prompted me to do this video is I noticed since this video was recorded 2 weeks ago, there's been a couple or maybe a few responses to the olive tree topic. And I don't know if I was clear or not in the video that we originally recorded. So I want to kind of recap it with the Gentiles to see if I was clear. And if I was clear, then I want to make a separate video given their understanding of what the olive tree is, and we could take it from there. So let's see how the video starts, and let's see what happens.
I think we just did. In fact, that's if you decide to take time to go back and rehearse what we gave you and follow the breadcrumbs back, and you'll find the bread actually is leading right up there in that area right now, what you Israelites will call Gentiles. Gentile is non-Jew. Yes, sir.
I'll say something. Here's the. Well, just give me a second. Here's the bottom line. If you look at the same
as well. Yes. Who is that moving around?
Yeah,
okay, the only person.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Master of Truth, he brought out Melchizedek, Noah, Job, and Abraham as being Gentiles. But here's a definition from the Zondervan compilations, and basically what it says is Gentiles. The Hebrew is derived from an Akkad loan word meaning a gang or a group, such as workmen. The term was originally a general expression that stressed political and social affiliations rather than bonds of kinship, and thus was used of nations in the widest sense. The list of the descendants of Noah, as seen in Genesis 10 and 2, showed the affinity of all Near East nations in antiquity. But with the description of the offspring of Abraham, the Old Testament narratives found it desirable to make a distinction between them and other contemporary people. This, however, was not undertaken in any narrow or exclusive sense. When you look at Genesis 12 and 2, 18 and 18, 22 and 18, 24 and 6. When the Israelites entered into a special relationship with God in the covenant at Sinai, as seen in Exodus 19 and 6, they became conscious of nationhood, and thereafter the sense of uniqueness and separation as the people of God was brought to bear upon all their relationships with neighboring people. So, that makes it clear that there was no really Gentile as used later in the Bible before this covenant was made with Israel. So we could pretty much argue back and forth about Melchizedek, Job, Noah, and everybody else. But there wasn't a distinction until Israel came along and had their relationship with God, according to the scriptures and verses that the Zondervan compilation brings out.
So what just happened is the panel was trying to say that the forefathers of Israel were Gentiles. But according to the use of Gentile was basically a word used as different gangs or tribes. So there really wasn't a distinction between any other tribe before Israel came along. Once Israel came along, then Gentiles became every nation outside of Israel. So before Israel, there was no literal Gentile. And so they didn't take this too well because they want to kind of make it seem like Gentiles have always been there. Or Gentile has always been there, or Gentiles have always been there. But that's not always the case, because it's kind of disingenuous. But let's just see how this conversation goes.
Could I jump in here? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if I've been gone for about 3 minutes, but in the outside chat, it's kind of relevant to this. It's been questioned on whether or not people before Jacob were called Israel, and I believe the idea is that.
Okay, yeah. So basically, Remy, he's dealing with Israel. Was there an Israel before Jacob? So basically, there probably is some confusion in the chat, thinking that since this line led up to Jacob, that all that line was Israel. But that's just not the case. But I'm about to pause it and pick back up where we started dialoguing again.
Saying all of you doing it, but it's quite a bit of those who are identifying as Israelite or Hebrew Israelites are doing it, making it seem as Israel predates even Isaac, Abraham, and etc. And Israel does not. So why is, I will ask any Hebrew Israelite this who is listening or Israelite. Why are you doing that? Why are you ignoring? It seems as if you're ignoring what took place beforehand, before that covenant was established with Abraham, because all of the whole book is important. And the documentation, the Bible shows itself that, hey, these people weren't circumcised. Israel wasn't started. And these people came from different lands, which you today will consider Gentile nations. So why is that being ignored? And I just would like to know.
Me personally, I wouldn't consider Job, Melchizedek, I wouldn't consider any of them Gentiles in the modern sense, or after post-dating Israel sense, because they had a relationship with God the Father. They did sacrifices, Job did sacrifices, and Melchizedek, so I don't really see anyone having that particular type of relationship with the Father could be considered a Gentile, unless you could tell me something different. But I wouldn't consider them Gentiles in a sense, because the word, as we just read in the Zondervan compilations, that it didn't exist, and it's pretty interesting that it didn't exist, and the people that was named had that special relationship.
Okay, question. And this is a very good question. Messenger of Truth asked this question, and I'm asking it along with him. Job did what?
Okay, so Messenger of Truth, he asked, what did Job do? Because I said that Job sacrificed. And when I started making this video, I was going to respond to Messenger of Truth as well. But now, just looking in the comments section, we see that Messenger of Truth kind of cleared up his stance. And he's basically saying the same thing that I was about to say, so I don't have to say it. And as you notice, I thanked him for saying this and to keep me from saying it. So basically, he said, to be fair to G-Checker, my question was a question, not a challenge. But I kind of did feel like I was challenged, but that's what I was on the hot seat for. I was up for the challenge. So I did feel like that, but I'm glad Messenger of Truth clarified that it wasn't a challenge. He said grain offerings usually come out the burnt offerings, but are not the burnt offerings themselves. I knew that Job prayed for his children just in case they sinned, but I forgot about the burnt offerings. G-Checker use of the word sacrifice, which threw me off. There were times in the Old Testament before the law of Moses that some people occasionally offered burnt offerings, such as Noah did after the flood, and how Abraham was told to offer Isaac as a burnt offering replaced by the ram. So I appreciate Messenger of Truth for doing this, because to me that's genuine and that's honesty, and that's pure edification. So let's listen.
What sacrifices did he do?
Okay, let me see. Let's go to, hold on.
What sacrifices did Job know as of them
Okay, hold on.
beforehand?
Hold on. Okay, hold on. Let's go to Job 1 and 4.
Okay.
All right, and we'll start at 4. And his son, speaking about Job, went and feasted in their houses, every one his day.
So now Messenger of Truth, he was like, yes, he did. So I appreciate that.
You know what I mean? So we're thinking that's talking about their birthdays. And sent and called for the 3 sisters to eat and to drink with them. And it was so. When the days of their feasting were gone about, that Job sent and sanctified them, and rose up early in the morning and offered burnt offerings. Now, what is a burnt offering?
I believe a sacrifice.
Okay.
See, that's the confounding. That is the confounding. So watch how she stutters and kind of, and this isn't a normal G checking like I normally do it. Normally I try to rub it in and just get all, but I'm not doing that this time. I'm just pointing out the pride in being right and wrong and how that's not edifying for those that are listening. And if you're calling yourself a teacher or an edifier, then it's best to say, hey, you know what? Let me research it. And then they had me second guessing it as well, and I had already did the research. They had me second guessing it, but it happens. But let's listen.
And offered a burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus did Job continually. So tell me, is that speaking of a sacrifice, or what is that speaking of?
Messenger offering can be grain.
Okay, well, I mean, it could be, but it said he did a burnt offering, so I took it as a sacrifice, but that's a good point. So it really doesn't say, but nonetheless, there was an offering, and I probably should have just said an offering. So when you have a people or a person that does this type of offering according to the way Israel did it, then it's hard to say that this man was a Gentile in the modern sense.
So it says that Job was from the land of Uz, U-Z.
Okay, so she's still trying to maneuver her way out of it. And just like Paul was a Roman, but he was an Israelite. So your land occupation doesn't make you a native of the land, or it doesn't mean that your lineage starts in that land. So this is what I'm saying. It's the pride that is tied to these dialogues that is keeping it from being unfruitful. So listen.
When we look into the Septuagint regarding Job, he gives the land of Uz, I believe, near.
Okay, in the Septuagint, which is basically the starting of this whole conversation. You're going to the Septuagint, which is a Greek culture. And we're talking about Greeks and Gentiles. So when you start talking about Greeks and Gentiles, and then you want to go to a Greek translation, then that's pretty much lining up with the whole conversation that we're having. That Greek, whenever you hear Greek, is basically speaking of philosophy, Greek philosophy, the philosophy of thought, of science, and of let's just see, because Paul even talks about the Greek philosophy in Colossians 2. Let me pause this and go to it. So when you read Colossians 2 and 8, you can even start up at verse 1. And for I would that ye knew what great conflict I have for you, and for them at Laodicea, and for as many have not seen my face in the flesh, that their hearts may be comforted, being knit together in love, and unto all riches of the full assurance of understanding, to the acknowledgement of the mystery of God. So this is basically dealing with Greek philosophy and of the Father and of Christ, in whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, because that's what Greek philosophy was about: obtaining knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and sciences, and mankind and human in the outer galaxies and all of that stuff. And who is God and what is God? That's what Greek philosophy is. So when you go down to verse 8, this is what it says. This is what Paul is saying: beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men. So the tradition of men during this time was Greek philosophy. You could Google Greek philosophy first century, and you will see that was a strong, thought-provoking time, to where everybody was a Greek. Everybody was sort of a metaphysician in their own sense, and after the rudiments of the world and not of Christ. This is Greek philosophy that Paul is speaking of. So she's going to a Greek Septuagint that is starting the Jews off in a Greek mind state. Okay, so why is this commentary in the Alexandrian Jews Septuagint version of the Bible? That is a topic that we could discuss later, and I encourage anyone listening to study Greek philosophy from the time of the Alexandrian Jews up until 135 AD. Just do that, and it'll do wonders for you. But just listen how she's trying to fight, tug, and pull on this, and she thinks she has me confounded, but watch and listen.
And the area of Idumea, if I'm correct. I don't know if Brother Brian can pull that up, but if he can, that will be great. And I'm looking. Hold on, messenger. Just tell him I accept offering. I'm not sure what he means by that.
Well, he's saying okay. because I said sacrifice, so he's saying he accept the offering part. You know, he's specifying that he, offering and not the sacrifice part. So, I mean, but he gets where I'm coming from as far as that relationship that Job had with God the Father.
Okay. And hold on real quick.
He might clarify.
Yeah, he might clarify that one. And okay, so Teria, I hope if I'm saying your name wrong, I'm sorry. If my ancestors were born in.
Okay, see, now this is where it gets tricky, so I don't want to get into this because Cherry is trying to pit me against this female in the chat, and I just don't want to deal with it like that.
Africa, but moved here to America, I will be an African American. But my roots are African. So Abraham might have been born as a Gentile, but still seed of Adam. Again, I'm not disagreeing with that, sis. But what I'm telling you again, when you previously stated that the Gentiles weren't a part of Abraham. Abraham started out as Gentile, baby. So you can't say that again. You can't say that again.
This is what it says in the Complete Jewish Bible. It says there was a man in the land of Uz, which name was Iob. Uz is the poetic name for Edom. Lamentations 4:21. And Job, like Daniel and Ezekiel, was known among the Jews as an example for righteousness. So,
and that will be found also in the Septuagint. That's thinking about. So no, you will not. No, for me, sis. Let me let you know. For myself, if that's what you're equating, I don't care about the DNA status. Honestly, and he showed a clear distinction. All of Israel, all the men of Israel, and then he goes into the wives, the children, and the stranger. They were there at the time that God established them as a people. So we got the Gentiles right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you do have them established in Deuteronomy 29. And what was the other scriptures that were brought out?
He just went to 1 Kings
8:41.
8 and 41.
That's where Solomon is building the temple, and he's declaring if a foreigner comes from another nation that is not of Israel, they can worship, for the God. So in other words, it's about God. It ain't about us. Basically what Solomon's saying in simple terms.
Yeah, and Solomon was able to say that, but we also know that Solomon, married pagan wives and he erred. That's why the kingdom divided. So, I mean, I really wanted to cut him with Isaiah 60 and 10, but, I just wanted to keep the dialogue fruitful, because when you look at Isaiah 60 and 10, this is what you see. And the sons of strangers shall build up their walls. So it's saying that the strangers will be there, but they will build up your walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. Minister in this context means help. For my wrath I smote thee, Israel, but in my favor, Israel, I have had mercy on you. So with all that said, the stranger is going to be there, but they have to be obedient like Israel. And then they're going to be building up walls and basically in a serviceman type capacity, according to Isaiah 60 and 10. But listen.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't have a problem with somebody that's worshiping God the Father like Israel worshipped. I just have a problem when the other nations, or even Israel for that matter, deviate from the will of God. And you can kind of see that deviation in Numbers 11. Let me see if I can find it.
You say deviation, deviate how?
Deviating from the will of God, from his commandments. Basically what he commanded Israel to do. So if Israel deviates from the will of God and the Gentiles deviate from the will of God, then that is what most of my arguments are about anyways. And when you go to Numbers 11, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, go to Numbers 11 and 4. This is where you see like a deviation, and you see, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and hold on 1 second.
Again, I mean the proof is overwhelming. That the Gentiles, we ain't even done yet. We haven't even gotten to Rahab. We haven't even gotten to Caleb. We haven't even gotten to what's his name, Obed Edom. We haven't even gotten to him. And if God wasn't dealing with the Gentiles at all, that's kind of funny right there. And not to mention, he started out with Gentiles. They were his ground zero.
Hello?
Breaking ground.
Hello?
Yes, I see. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Well, this is talking about like a deviation, and you see Israel deviating too. Basically, the mixed multitude in Israel was complaining about leaving Egypt, and basically they fell a lusting. They wanted to eat flesh, as you can see, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and the children of Israel wept again and said, "Who shall give us flesh?" So basically, this is when they had 70 elders, and I think 2 or 3 of the elders became false prophets. And then you see what happened to the mixed multitude at the end of the chapter in some of Israel when they deviated. And when you go to let's start at verse 32. And the people stood up all that day and all that night. And all the next day they gathered quails because the false prophets told them that that they were going to be able to eat some meat. And let's see here, they gathered quail. He that gathered the least. Well, he that gathered at least gathered 10 homers, and they spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp. And while the flesh was yet between their teeth, ere it was chewed, the wrath of God was kindled against the people. And the Lord smote the people with a very great plague. And he called the name of that place Kabroth Hatava, because they buried the people that lusted. So you pretty much see the mixed multitude that lusted. A majority of them, or maybe all of them, got buried because they deviated. Even though
now hold on, G Checker. Somebody's pushing against you. The same person, Tyria Ballard, said Israelite has always disobeyed the Most High. So.
See, she's trying to say that she is pushing back against me. That's that contention. But if you see, Messenger Truth said wanting meat is not a deviation. They wanted meat instead of manna and grains. But it really is a deviation, because basically when you're commanded to do something and you want to do something else, even if you don't do it, like Christ said, he who looks upon a woman and thinks, he already committed. So those that are thinking contrary to the will of God is already deviating from his plan. So if he's telling you to eat this manna, you should eat that manna because he just delivered you out of bondage. But if you're complaining saying you want to eat this that he's telling you that you're not going to eat, you're showing that you're not faithful, you're not being obedient. And that goes right on to 1 John 5:3. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. So how can you actually love the Lord if you are grieving over his commandments? So it is a deviation. It is. No matter how they try to put it, that is a deviation.
It doesn't matter if you care of their deviant. He still chose them beyond the other nations. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, you could get into Ezekiel 36 where the Lord is going to, install a new heart. But all Israel never transgressed. There was always a remnant that didn't. So, I mean, the sister has a point there. But me personally, my argument is against those, and I'm not speaking for anybody else but myself, Lamont. I'm saying that my arguments are for those that claim to be Israel Christians or whatever. If you don't abide to the will of God, then I just basically call you a pagan. You know what I mean?
But then again, what her statement is contradicting, because again, if like she said Israel has always disobeyed the Most High, but it doesn't matter if you care of their deviant. So their sin doesn't matter just because they're chosen. If that's the case, then guess what? Then God shouldn't care about the other sins, should he?
Well, no, I mean, you don't hear that. When you go to Revelations, you can go to 2:27 or even 21. It talks about those that overcome, and that means overcome the lust of the flesh. Those will be the ones that are written in the book of life. So, I mean, you can kind of interpret it the way you want. But, the Lord...
I'm not interpreting it the way I want. I'm reading what she said.
No, I'm saying, I don't want to get into that. You know what I mean? Because that's not what I'm arguing. So if you want to get into it, that's fine. You can have a discussion with her on that. But, I think I made my point very clear.
Well, again, the fact...
See, that's the thing. She wants me to come on there and talk about an argument that I don't want to talk about. I'm talking about Gentiles. I came on a panel because of Gentiles, and that's what I wanted to talk about. You know, I already said what I had to say, so you trying to make me go in on somebody, and I mean, you're just not going to do it. You're not going to make me go in on somebody who I don't want to go in on. You know, if the sister Tria Ballard says that and look, hold on, she's saying it does matter, that's why he took the land from them. So Cherry Love is saying something that the girl didn't say. Cherry Love said it didn't matter, that Trey Ballard said it didn't matter that if Israel sinned or not, but right here she said it does matter, that's why he took their land from them. So she's making an argument for both of us that we're not trying to make, and she's trying to make us contend against one another, and that's the love that she has for all other nations other than herself. And I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that's just the way I'm seeing it now, because you want me to contend against somebody that isn't even saying what you're saying she's saying, and I haven't even looked up, so I don't know, but right here, she's not saying that.
Answering to her, God did care about them deviating. Okay, he made it very clear, and I guess you skipped over Ezekiel 16. He cared about it. If you
So I'm gonna pause this and look for the next section.
respond, are you able to respond?
Yeah. When talking about Ephesians 2:11, about the sacrifice, but circumcision. It is well understood that Israel was supposed to be circumcised on the 8th day, and you said they would be. Well, it's understood that if Israel wasn't circumcised on the 8th day, they would be cut off from the congregation. I mean, does mostly everybody on the panel agree with that?
That's what Genesis 17 said, but we do see proof that some of the men were circumcised at a later time, especially when they came out of the Exodus before they entered the Promised Land.
Right. Yeah. In Joshua 5, yeah, it definitely talks about that. So that pretty much lets you know that you can be an Israelite and not be circumcised. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up because you know, that's like been an argument that's been sticking around for a while, and that's why it's hard for anybody to understand that Ephesians 2:11 and 12 could very well be speaking of Israelites, because as we've seen in Joshua, Israel wasn't cut off even though they weren't circumcised on the 8th day.
Okay, so again, you got to show me an Israelite that was not circumcised, period.
Well, yeah, they weren't circumcised.
Okay, so they weren't called uncircumcision. These people were called uncircumcision.
By those, according to the flesh made with hands. So that's basically speaking of circumcision. I mean, we know when Israel got broken down into two different kingdoms, and Ephraim went a whoring and basically was told that they weren't the people of God. So do you think by them not being a people that they still kept all the laws and the covenants? Because, I mean, I think that they pretty much broke all the laws and covenants. That's why they were cast. That's why they were not a people.
So again, are you basing being an Israelite off of keeping a law?
No.
Versus what God said, keeping the law and being circumcised as a token, as a sign? Because at that time in the Old Covenant, that was the established rule by God in Genesis 17, 9, and 10. They had to be circumcised. Now, if you look at Joshua, as you pointed out earlier, before they went into the Promised Land, they went and took care of that before they entered into the land. And I'm sure it's the guarantee not to break that rule. However, that rule did not apply to the Gentile.
Oh, it did. Well, there were Gentiles that were circumcised. It's in Jeremiah. I could find it, but that's not the point I was making. The point I was making is when the Lord said, "They are not my people." At that point, they were cast away. So, if they are cast away, are they still held to the same standard of being circumcised and keeping the laws? They were still Israelites, but they were not a part of the congregation anymore. So they went straight pagan and they were into other nations, doing the things of other nations. So if the other nations weren't circumcised, then you can almost believe when they went in those other nations, they were not circumcised.
Okay, other nations, you're talking about Hellenized. You're talking about Hellenized Jews, Hellenistics.
See, she learned a word saying Hellenized Jews, but Hellenized Jews are Grecians. Those are Greek-speaking Jews. You can't call every Jew that was scattered into every nation outside of Greece a Grecian or a Hellenized Jew, because Hellenism started with, in fact, let me read it because I got it right here. Let me read this because it's funny how these members come up with this type of thought process, but don't really know what they're talking about. Okay, let's see here. Hellenism, imitation of the Greeks. So you can't call every Israelite scattered into, especially in the Old Testament, you can't call them Hellenized Jews, because Helen didn't come about until to Alexander the Great. So here it is. Hellenism is the devotion to ancient Greek thought, customs, and lifestyle. Okay, so when you call somebody a Greek or a Hellen, even a Helen is those that are devoted to ancient Greek thought, customs, and lifestyle. Okay, a Hellenist is a Greek-speaking Jew, but Hellenism or Helen is the devotion to ancient Greek thought, customs, and lifestyle. So when you see there's no difference between Jew and Greek, that means two Israelites with two polar opposite understandings in two philosophies. Okay, you have a Jew philosophy, which is, I wouldn't even say Jew philosophy, I would say the biblical philosophy, which is, thus saith the Lord, obey the commandments of God. And then you have the Greek customs, which is Hellenism, not Hellenistis, but Hellenism, which is the devotion to ancient Greek thought, customs, and lifestyle. So she's making arguments that I'm not trying to make, and she's using words out of context, and she doesn't even know it.
Those Jews that went into other nations and kept heathen customs, but did it change their nationality?
Oh, I said it didn't. I said it didn't. That's what.
It doesn't. Now, when we're speaking about actual Gentiles, we're talking about actual Gentiles that were born in a Gentile land, that were born as Gentiles by birth. That's what Ephesians 2:11 is referring to.
See, I disagree with that.
Okay, I can show you. I'll go back here to the blue letter. In fact, I am going to try to push. I'm going to try to push. Let me get this away here.
Let me pause this and do a internet network check.
Let's go to the actual verse first, so everybody knows what we're addressing, because I don't want to leave nobody behind.
Right.
Okay. Ephesians chapter.
All right, I'm about to pause it and come back and see if I can go out of this and start over.
Verse 11. Once my computer decides it wants to grow a brain. Okay. All right. So here we go. Right here. Therefore, remember that at one time you Gentiles in the flesh called uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision. That will be the Jews who were called uncircumcision. I said the Gentiles were called uncircumcised. Uncircumcision because a lot of them weren't circumcised. Okay, so let's go to the Blue Letter Bible. And then I'm going to try to push my computer to do Bible Hub because it gives so I'm going to try because it is kind of slow. Ephesians, here go Ephesians 2. Hey, Brother Eber, God bless you. I see you. Praise God for you. Okay, let's go now. All right. Now, here we go. Same verse. Wherefore, remember that ye being in past times Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision, by which that is called circumcision in the flesh, was made by hands. Okay, so here we go. Going into the interlinear. Again, here we go. Gentiles, G1484, which is ethnos, or ethnos. I'm sorry, I keep pronouncing it wrong. Now, Blue Letter Bible gives a definition of Gentiles, nation, heathen, people, and it gives one, a multitude, whether of men or beasts, associated or living together, a company, troop, swarm, a multitude of individuals of the same nature or genus, the human family, a tribe, nation, people, group. Testament, referring to them as foreigner, foreign nations, not worshiping the true God, pagan, Gentiles. Paul uses this term for Gentile Christians. In the Strong's definition, it says ethnos, probably from G1486, a race, as of the...
Okay, I want to start at a multitude of individuals of the same nature or genus. Genus could mean genre, style, type, sort, class, group, division, subdivision. So we see that Gentile or ethnos could actually mean anything outside of one particular group of people. They want to say that Gentiles are every nation outside of Israel, but that's not what we see right here. We see a multitude of individuals of the same nature. Okay? So the same nature means that you could be a Jew, but have the nature of a Greek. So that makes you a Gentile. Okay? The clearest example of that is when Christ went to the Galilee of the Gentiles. But guess what? When he went to the Galilee of the Gentiles, he went in the synagogues and taught. So wait a minute. Gentiles have Jewish synagogues. That's a cut all day. So you see it's a tribe, a nation, group of people. And then Paul uses it for Gentile Christians. So you still see that Gentile, even though it's Gentile Christians, it is those of a particular group. So she would have been better off not going to the blue letter, because the blue letter is really going against what she's trying to prove, but she just doesn't know it.
Inhabitants, i.e. a tribe, especially a foreign, non-Jewish, one usually by pagan, Gentile, heathen, nation, people. And then it gives reference, it gives references here. Now, look at this. Look at Matthew 10 and 5.
And see, the funny part about it is you see the Strong's definition that says specifically a foreign one. And when it says a foreign, non-Jewish, so Jewish is basically those that are practicing Judaism. Okay? So you could be an Israelite and not a Jew. That is the clear cut in that. And then what's the next parentheses after that? Usually by implication, pagan. So we know that Israel was pagan. That's why they were cut off. So no matter how you try to slice and dice this definition, it's not really working in your favor.
These 12 Jesus sent forth and command them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentile, G1484, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not. So let me ask you a question. Are these Gentiles actually Gentiles in Matthew 10:5?
Say what now?
Are these Gentiles mentioned in Matthew chapter 10, verse 5? Are those actual Gentiles?
That's hard to say, because go to Matthew 18 and 17 and tell me what you think this is talking about.
It's funny, it's not referencing that.
Right.
It's not referencing Matthew 8, which just proving my point.
Well, let's go to it and see.
Matthew chapter 18?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
And you can start up a few verses and put it in context, unless you want me to read it.
What? Okay. What verse first?
Well, you can start at I'm basically calling out verse 17, but you can start at verse 15, or you can start at 16. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that is in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word may be established. Okay. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglects to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican.
Got him.
Okay, so that's basically saying he's rejected. He's no more longer a part of the congregation. He is a heathen man. So now you can see right here, Israel is being called a heathen man or a Gentile. If you want to look up that word heathen right there, it's at the netos or nikos, and the root word of that is ethnos.
Okay.
Got him.
Gentile is referred to a heathen. I never denounced that.
Right, so but you said
Israel was never considered a Gentile? Or did you say that? Because right here it is.
No, what is it is in reference to it again. Look at this in the New Testament, savoring of the nature of pagans, alien to worship of the true God, heathenish of pagan Gentiles. Yes, again, the manner, in the manner, in context, in the manner. But we're talking about actual Gentiles in the flesh. So you're trying to confuse action with actual birth.
No, I'm not, because I clearly said earlier that Israelites can be heathens, and when they went to other nations like Ephraim, when they were no longer a people, I specifically said that it is more than likely once they start doing the practices of the other nations, they were no longer circumcising. They were no longer doing the will of the Lord, of God the Father. So
right, that what you would consist, which that would consist of a person being wicked, but is there if I'm a Greek, if I'm a natural born Greek, what would the Israelites call?
see, again, she said a natural born Greek. There is no such thing as a natural born Greek unless they are of Greek lineage. Otherwise, any nation could be a Greek if they apply the philosophy, thought, and custom of the Greeks that started with Alexander the Great. See, she's using words and don't even know what they mean, and it's kind of funny to even, put it in that context, but what is this? All right. Anyway. But it's kind of funny that you see the word heathen, which is actually the word Gentile, used, and Israel is being called this heathen or this Gentile, and she's still rejecting it. And this Gentile is basically from the root word ethnos. So it's still ethnos. And if you look up the definition of heathen, you see right here, that it is of the pagan, the Gentile. So in the New Testament, savoring of the nature of pagans, alien to the worship of the true God, heathenish. So that's the ish of heathen. So you are heathenish, but that's the word they put on there, but it's actually heathen. And right here you see the Strong's definition: national, ethnic, especially a Gentile, heathen. So this is still Gentile, suited to the manners or language of foreigners, strange, foreign, adopted to the genius or customs of people peculiar to a people, national. So this is letting you know that Israel can be considered a Gentile people. They could call you a Gentile, but they could call Israelites Gentile too. And the reason why...
Right. Yeah. Those who lived in those countries and they practiced their ways, they were called I can't say the word, Hellenistic.
You're talking about Greek. See, she's still using Grecian or Hellenistus, but I just showed her a heathen, Israelite being called a heathen, a totally separate term than Hellenistus. She's still bringing up Hellenistus, but I brought up ethniko, which comes from the root word ethnos. She's still fighting for Hellenistus, but we know that being a Hellen is from the Greek custom, from the Greek thought, custom, or philosophy. So she's mixing and matching words, and it's really not making sense. So this video, I'm not about trying to clown her. I'm about trying to edify those that are looking up to this type of understanding, to let you know that this is completely off.
And see, all throughout Acts, we could go all throughout Acts.
Aren't those Jews in other lands that picked up Gentile customs?
No, those are Greek-speaking Jews. That's what Hellenistus is. It's Greek-speaking Jews.
Okay, so again, so you're basically saying in Ephesians 2:11 that those are actual Israelites when the text clearly says that they were Gentiles in the flesh. Now you will say that you're an Israelite in the flesh, correct? By blood.
What the text is saying is that you're being considered, you're called uncircumcision. It said you are called uncircumcision in time past, Gentiles in the flesh.
In the flesh.
No, listen, it said who are called uncircumcision by that which is the circumcision in the flesh made with hands.
You got to show me where an Israelite ever anywhere in the 66 books that was not circumcised.
In Joshua 5:5, they were not circumcised until they went into the land.
But then they got circumcised when they got the land. So you can't use that.
They got circumcised, but when the two kingdoms broke off and then Ephraim became its own nation and they became no people, you cannot say they still circumcised because they took on the ways of the other nations that they went into.
It says that Joshua had them circumcised, correct? Before they went into the land.
That's in Joshua, but now we're talking about
Ephraim. They were circumcised, correct?
In Joshua, yes, they were. But
okay, then. So again, these men were later on circumcised. They were just exiting out of wherever they were.
See, she thought she had an arguing point, but she really doesn't. And that's why I was bothering her, because that was her go-to. Oh, show me a person that wasn't circumcised. I showed you in Matthew 18:17, I believe it was, that a heathen is a Gentile. And you see that being uncircumcised in the flesh is a Gentile. And you could go to Romans 2:25, how you could become a Gentile through your way of thinking. So if Israel did not circumcise in the kingdom separated and they forgot that they were a people, or they were wiped out from, or being destroyed as a people and were no longer a people, you can't hold them to the same standard of those that are a people. And that's what she's failing to understand. And just watch what happens, because they have no clue in the arguments that they're coming up with. You know, they have their little power group or whatever you want to call it, but they're not used to these different arguments, because once they come against these different arguments, they stumble, and then they start going back to quoting stuff that they know, and it just doesn't work.
Before they got into the land, they were circumcised. So again, that is not proving your premises. I need a Israelite man that was never circumcised, period, point blank.
Okay, well, let's go to verse 2. Let's go to verse 2 and 3. Let's go to verse 2 and 3. And we can really start at verse 1, 2, and 3 of Ephesians 2. And I'll read it. And are you there?
Hold on. Yeah, I'm still here. I got the switch back on. You got to give me an opportunity.
And then we can go through Acts and see the same type of language. But anyways, it says verse 1. And you hath he quickened, who were dead in trespass and sins. Okay, so who were dead in trespass and sins? Mankind. So the new covenant. Mm-hmm. Hold on.
The Gentiles was in sin.
No, hold on, because I'm asking a question and I'm not finished asking my question.
Okay.
So in Hebrews 8:8, when it said the new covenant is for the house of Israel and for the house of Jacob, and we know. Okay,
why are you skipping over to the covenant? We talking about
No, but you got to let me finish.
Okay.
Okay, so Hebrews 8:8, even Jeremiah 31 talks about a new covenant. And right now, as we're talking about Ephesians 2, we're talking about this new covenant. Okay, and we know what sin is. Sin is the transgression of the law. So if we know that sin is a transgression of the law, according to the covenant of the new and the old covenant, which is basically describing Israel, when you read verse 2, it says, where ye in time past, where in time past you walked according to the course of this world. Okay, according to the prince of power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. Okay, so what other nation have the laws in this covenant to be disobedient? Among whom
Israel has the law. Israel has the law. But but then I'm gonna come back to you with Acts chapter 15, because y'all didn't keep it at all.
Okay, and we really can go to Acts 15, because that is a stumbling block for a lot of people.
It's not a stumbling block, because again, you got Peter and Paul and them telling them, why would you put on them something that we couldn't even keep?
So who is it talking about them? In Acts 15, who is it talking about them?
The Gentiles. Why would you put on the Gentiles something that, number one, they never had, number two, or don't know about, number three, something that we couldn't even keep ourselves? What was the point of Christ coming back?
Okay, so now let's
there wouldn't be no need for Christ to come back. There wouldn't be no need for him to come back, because you keep it perfectly, y'all all right? Y'all got this down pat. But Christ had to come back and fix what y'all messed up and complete the law. So again, how you gonna put on somebody? How you gonna put something or tell somebody to move these 40 cars and you can't even move it yourself? You sound like a fool.
That's not
and
true.
I'm not calling you a fool.
I know. But I'm not saying we don't need Christ. We need Christ because he showed us how to walk in the spirit perfectly.
So why did you need Christ?
Because he showed us how to walk. He showed us how to walk accordingly.
But I thought the law was showing you how to walk.
Yeah, but Jesus showed us how to walk it in spirit and heart. It tells you. No. That goes. No. Hold on, let me finish. You can't ask me a question and not let me answer.
So he had to come back and show you how to walk even in the spirit. Shouldn't the law have been able to do that for you?
Jesus showed us how to walk in the spirit. Okay, that's why. Hold on. Because
of Christ.
You cannot. So hold on, Cherry. Hold on. You can't make that argument in Jeremiah 30. No, you can't. Not when Jeremiah 31 and 31 says there's going to be a new covenant that's going to be put in your heart. So you can't say that because.
See, look, and this is what I want to point out. She didn't let me get the verse 3 before she just tried to go to Acts 15. And I was going to go to Acts 15. I asked a couple times that night, let's go to Acts 15, because she was about to get tripped up and she was about to be stumbling because she doesn't, and I'm pretty sure nobody on that panel understands Acts 15. One of their brethren, he got tripped up bad. And another one didn't even want to read for me that night. So, and this was in a private hangout. So she can say what she wants. But Ephesians 2 and 3 really pretty much puts it in the context. Among whom also we had our conversation in times past in the lust of our flesh. So who had these conversations in past times, the lust of the flesh? You can see the lust of the flesh when you go to Galatians 5 and 17. And it's basically quoting the Old Testament Torah. And it says, and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. So who are the others? But were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. So that's like the rest of the Gentiles. So it's letting you know that Israel had became like the others.
You going against Jeremiah when you say why? We know why.
No, I'm asking you why. I ain't questioning Jeremiah. I know Jeremiah too. But I ain't got a problem. I'm I'm talking about what your standpoint on what you're saying. I'm saying like this. You talking about these Gentiles, they didn't have the law in the first place. And they couldn't transgress or anything because we had the law. So if the law was so perfect for you or whatever, and you guys keeping it down pat, what Christ doing coming back? What you need him for?
According to Jeremiah 31 and 31 and Hebrews 8 and 8, it tells you why. Even Ezekiel 36 tells you why. But now I can go to Psalms 147 and 20 that's speaking on this next verse, verse 3 in Ephesians 2 and 3. It says, he declares his word to Jacob, his statutes and his judgment to Israel. He has done this. He has done this for no other nation. They do not know his judgments. Hallelujah.
I agree. The Gentiles didn't have it.
Okay, so
but
now
again,
we got God including the Gentiles as well. You gotta let me talk.
Hold on. Again, just like I explained to re-explain this Roman centurion called Cornelius, number one, which I know you're going to say that he's an Israelite, which he's not. Number two, you got to explain the Roman jailer who was sitting up there with Paul and Silas, who asked him clearly, what must I do to be saved? And he was saved. He accepted the Lord Jesus Christ. He was baptized, and him and his whole entire house was saved. You got to explain them, and they are actual Gentiles.
Okay, so you did all your talking, and I didn't interrupt you one bit.
Okay, go ahead.
But see, you gotta pay that same respect, because I get tired and I get sleepy. If I can't get my point across, then it really ain't no need of me being on the panel.
I'm holding you to the same principles. I am not changing your words. I am giving you back the same thing that you're giving me. I am throwing it right back at you in the form of a question. And I'm just asking you, you got to deal with this Roman centurion called Cornelius. You got to deal with, not to mention, you got to deal with the Syrophoenician woman who was actually from Syrophoenicia, and Jesus is dealing with her. And you got to deal with this Roman jailer, and I got countless other Gentiles that you got to deal with too.
And we can deal with all of them, but at the end of the day, we can't deal with it if you don't let me talk.
Okay.
I mean, you keep saying okay, but as soon as I start talking, you jump in, and it's hard, and I can't have a conversation with somebody that won't let me talk. You interrupting me now.
I said okay, go ahead.
Okay, so now Ephesians 2 and 3. Among whom also we had all our conversations in time past in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. So who are these others?
You tell me.
It's the other nations.
Okay.
Okay, so if they're having a conversation, and I'm starting back over at verse 3, among whom also we had our conversations in time past in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. Okay, so when you got that others right there, I'm at Ephesians 2, verse 3.
All right, Ephesians 2, verses 3.
I'm sorry. Acts 15.
All right,
sorry, I didn't mean to.
I was trying to figure out
we could go to Acts. You was at Acts 15. We could go there too. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But I was in Ephesians 2, and I went to Psalms 147 and 19 to pretty much solidify that that even as the others that didn't have, children of the wrath, those were well, you got me all tongue-tied now. But the children of the wrath are basically Israelites that became like the others. And that's why it says very clearly, even as others, because now you got to tell me who these others are just through your research. Who are these even as others?
Okay. Hold on. You went to Feast 2. Let me read it real quick. And you have he quickened who were dead in trespass and sin, where in times past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power in the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, among whom also we also had our conversations in time past in the lust of the flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and in the mind, and were nature the children of ass. But God, who is rich in mercy, for his great love within, he loved us, even when we were dead in the sins, with Christ, by grace you are saved, and have raised us together and made us sit together in heavenly places, that in ages to come he might show exceeding riches in his grace and kind, for grace through faith, and not that ourselves is a gift from God, not a works. Man, what are we? I mean, what? I'm lost. What?
Well, the reason me and Cherry we're having a conversation about Ephesians 2:11. The premise is set with verses 1 through 3, and then it solidifies it at verse 12 when it says that at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. That word aliens, if you look it up in the blue letter, go. Can you go to that Cherry Love? Go to the interlinear and look up that word
apologetics, alienate to estrange. It donates to a state prior to a man's reconciliation to God.
Right. So basically, when you look up the word, you see alienated, and then you see estranged. To be shut off from one's fellowship and intimacy. Okay, so were the Gentiles shut out from their fellowship and intimacy that they once had with God, or was it Israel that was shut off from the intimacy and was estranged? Because you can't be married to one person and be estranged to another. You can't.
When was Israel ever not part of a covenant?
Right.
Okay. Well, let's go here. I think it's in.
I mean, it's right there. It says from the covenants. The promise, whoever these people are he's talking about, they were not part of the covenant. And Israel has always been a part of the covenant.
Is that what you see right there?
They always had, they had, who got the, who had the promise?
Say what?
It says, from the commonwealth of Israel and the strangers from the covenants of the promises, having no hope without God in the world. But now, in Christ, you who sometimes were far off, made nigh by the blood of Christ. For he is our peace, who had made both. Who is he both? That's the question. You know, if you say that they're both Israel, then you got a problem, because number one, Israel was part of the covenant.
Well, okay, let's go to Hosea. Let's go to Hosea one.
Why we going to Hosea? You
no,
need
because
to
no,
here.
Cherry. I mean, you gotta let me talk.
I am letting you talk.
No, because you
running back to Hosea. We
no. You asked me a question. Brian said, when was Israel not a part of the covenant? So now I'm going to show you when Israel was not a part of the covenant. Can I do that, please?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Hosea 1. Let's start and hold on. All right, can you go to Hosea 1?
I'm right here at it. Where you want me to start at?
You could start at verse 8, or the main part of it is at verse 10.
Yet the number of children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. In that place where it was said to them, "You're not my people," it should be said to the children of the living God.
Yeah, well, what said you're people. So
okay.
If Israel was said that they were, that part of Israel was said they were not his people, so they were cut off. And when you read verse 9, it says, "Then God called his name Lo Ami, for you are not my people, and I will not be your."
Check out verse 11. And the children of Judah, and the children of Israel shall be together, and they shall appoint themselves for one head, and they shall go up. This is talking about both houses. It's not just talking about one.
Oh, I know. You want to know when the both houses came into?
See, right here, Brian, he doesn't even know that he just cut himself. Because in Ephesians 2, verse 13, I believe it was, when he said, who are the both? When he said, who are the both? Ephesians 2:14, who are the both? He just read it in Hosea 1:11. Because 1:11 says, and the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together. So that's two different groups of people, the children of Judah and the children of Israel. And they shall appoint themselves one head, and they shall go up from the land, for great shall be the day of Jeriel. So when he said, who are the both, he just read it. He just wants to argue, because him and Cherry and Pastor Sean, they have their own little thing going on. So let's just watch how this conversation goes, and I'm gonna deal with the olive tree later because it's taking too much time.
You're exclusing it just to the northern kingdom, but it's not.
Hold on. No, see, you can't say that, bro.
See, how can he say that I'm making it exclusive to the northern kingdom when he just read in Hosea 1:11 and it's talking about the children of Judah? That's the southern kingdom. The children of Israel, that's the northern kingdom. So he's really used to these certain arguments, but he's not ready for the truth to be brought out. So let's listen and see how this pans out.
You're saying it's northern
okay,
kingdom,
go ahead.
right?
Hold on, go ahead, and then I'm gonna let you get your point off, and then I want to be able to talk.
Go ahead. I just pointed out they were both. It wasn't just one.
Can I say something real quick, G-Checker?
Well, hold on. Let me say this right quick. Let me say this right quick. All right, when you look at verse 11, it says, then shall the children of Judah, okay? Now let's bracket that out. And then the children of Israel. Let's bracket that in, okay? The children of Israel. Let's bracket that in right there. Okay? Can we do that? Okay, so now when you look at verse 10, yet the number of the children of Israel, we bracketed in that children of Israel that is separated from the children of Judah, shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, that's the children of Israel that are in the bracket alone that I just singled out in verse 11, that is talking about them. Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God.
Well, let me ask you, in verse 11, it says, they shall appoint. Does that mean that Jesus is going to do it, or are they going to do it? Whenever this happens, they're going to do it themselves. It's not going to be Jesus. So you're trying to apply it to the New Testament. That's not. It says they shall appoint. That means they're going to do this themselves.
Where are y'all at now? Hosea.
Verse 11. Look,
verse 11.
It says, and they shall appoint
Chapter.
for themselves one head. Not Jesus is going to do it. They're going to do it.
What chapter are you at?
Verse 1. Chapter 1.
Verse 11.
Verse 11.
Verse 11.
Yeah, Hosea
Okay.
1.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to appoint them themselves. Not Jesus going to do it for them. They're going to do it. They're going to come back from the Babylon captivity in the Old Testament. They're going to make a leader themselves. Not Jesus. Jesus said he's going to gather them together. He's going to take one stick and then take the other stick, and he's going to do it for them himself. This right here says they're going to do it.
Right, it does say that. Yep. But we could deal with the one stick as well, making the two sticks one. That's speaking of the two different houses again, so the theme is still staying the same.
Actually, if you read Ezekiel 37, we can go there. But it's going to tell you that this is going to happen when the King David's going to do it, which is basically Jesus.
Yeah.
It's actually going to hurt you in this actually verse is going to
Okay, go to it.
Okay, I'm going to it. It's landed right where Brother Brian said. I'll get the whole thing.
But I want to see where the Gentiles are entered into this these two sticks.
Well, I I personally, I mean, sometimes in the Old Testament, a lot of things not written directly to Gentiles. We know some of this stuff is written directly to Israel, and I have zero problem with it. But you can't take one verse and hold on to it without excluding everybody else.
I'm not excluded. All I was dealing with was Ephesians 2, and I was making a point very clear. But Yehukanan, if y'all don't mind, can Yehukanan? I think he wanted to say something.
Let me read this. It says here in Ezekiel 37:15, the word of the Lord came, and mind you, this is reunion of Judah and Israel, both houses. The word of the Lord came again to me, saying, "And you, son of man, take a stick and write on it for Judah and for the children of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and all the houses of Israel, his companions." Verse 17. Then join them together into one stick, so that they may become one in your hand. When your people say to you, Will you not tell us what you mean by these? Say to them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am going to take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his companions, and I will join the stick of Judah with it, and make them one stick. And
Okay, so now that's why I wanted to go to the two sticks, because there you have thus saith the Lord is going to make them one stick. So you still have the both of them being made one stick, which is going back to Ephesians 2. So with that being said, Hosea is talking about Israel will appoint, but you see the same language in Ezekiel 37. But this time around, the Lord is going to make them into the two sticks into one. So those are the both that are being spoken of in Ephesians 2. Well, let's go on.
Will be one in my hand. And I
So what are Gentiles at in that?
Hey, Sister Sherry, I want to make sure that everybody knows, if you pay attention, he says, I will do this.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a good point, DG. Yehukanan? Is he still on?
This right here is regarding houses. Yeah. Everybody's still on from what I can see. Regarding the union of houses, adding them back together.
All right, let me go back to Ephesians 2 and 11, or 2 and 14, because right there, they just completely missed their whole argument that they were trying to make. All right, back to Ephesians 2 and 14. For he is our peace, who hath made both one. Okay, this time it's talking about the Lord has made both one. We just saw that in Ezekiel 37, that he was going to make both one, and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us, between the two houses. Okay, that they are felon, and me, I like to get my point across, and when they don't let me talk, it kind of makes me stumble. That's why I'm doing a follow-up. So let's see how this conversation goes.
But again, you got the Gentiles, and they do come in. So I don't know why you're excluding them again. And like I showed you in Revelation 7 and 9, that's Israel and that's Gentiles as well.
In Ezekiel 37, I'm not excluding the Gentiles from nothing.
Yes, you are.
I'm just trying to
We
find
just asked
them.
where the Gentiles come in this. Like this is just about. This part is about uniting both houses, but again, you're leaving out the Gentiles.
No, I'm not. How am I leaving them out? I'm asking you to show me where they are.
Not in this particular passage. This particular passage is about reuniting both of the houses.
So we could go back to Ephesians 11. I want you to show me where they are, because in verse 1 through 3 is clearly talking about Israel. Verse 12 is talking about Israel was alienated through that intimacy that they once had.
You got to not only were Israelite uncircumcised, alienated, and God just didn't deal with them no more.
I didn't hear nothing you said until God didn't have anything to do with them anymore.
You got to show me two things. You got to show me, number one, find me an Israelite man in the 66 books where an Israelite man was never circumcised and called uncircumcised. And then number two, you got to show me where what was the second question? Lord have mercy, I lost it. I'll think about it. But you got to show me a Israelite man that wasn't circumcised. Oh yeah, the second question, where God never gave Israel the covenant.
You mean Gentiles?
Israel.
You said, well, he never gave Israel a covenant?
Where they were estranged, stranger, that he never gave them the covenant.
We just read that in Hosea 1 and 11, where they were not a people. That means they were estranged.
So they never had a covenant with God?
No, it said estranged. Estranged means hold on.
Ephesians 2 said that they were estranged from the covenant, meaning they never had the covenant.
That ain't what estranged means. How can a husband be estranged for his wife if they were never married?
Again, right. And the Gentiles were never married to God.
So they can't be estranged.
But again, you got to show me where Israel never received the covenant from God.
What? We just saw where in Hosea 1 and 10 how a part of Israel was the covenant was taken away from them because they wasn't God's people.
And God didn't know them.
That's what it said.
So God never knew them?
It never said. That's what estranged mean. Estranged mean that you have a relationship and you left that relationship.
So, okay, the Gentiles never had a relationship, but now they're gaining a relationship with God.
Ding, ding, ding. She said the Gentiles never had a relationship, so how can you be estranged if you never had a relationship? Can two people that are engaged be estranged from one another? No. But a husband who has a relationship with his wife, after they have that bond and that covenant, they can be estranged when one leaves. So you're trying to say that the Gentiles were not a part of it, so they cannot be estranged. And see, it's so clear and simple that she's confusing herself because she's trying to argue for something that just isn't there. And listen, it just doesn't make sense.
They were estranged, meaning that they didn't know about this covenant. That again, in Acts 15, hold on. In Acts 15, clearly, when I used the example regarding Peter and Paul, saying, "Don't put something on them that we could not even keep."
Let's go there. Please, let's go there. And then before you go there, I want you to Google the word estranged and show me what that means.
I know what estranged means. That's not what I'm arguing. What I'm asking you, again, first of all, my first question, show me an Israelite man that was never circumcised. Never. Period. Born uncircumcised and
come on, Jerry.
Now, hold on. Israelite man that was never circumcised.
Can you hook and I speak? Because we're going in circles now.
No, I'm asking you. I'll get to your hook and on in a minute. I'm talking to you. You're making the claim. You prove it. Find me anywhere in the 66 books where an Israelite man born and died uncircumcised.
What does not my people mean? That means that you didn't do his covenant.
Lord Jesus.
What does that mean? That's clear.
You know of an Israelite man that was called uncircumcised.
When you are not my people, that means you are not a part of this covenant. That means you are cut off.
Again, find me. I'm asking you, even just one. Just one.
That's
from
the whole
66
nation.
Books, and you can don't come with me with no apocrypha because I don't hold to that. Again, find me in the 66 books an Israelite man that was never circumcised, born uncircumcised, and died uncircumcised.
I think what we need to be really looking at is how God cut off a people.
The question. Okay.
No, I'm not. I answered it, but you rejected it.
Why you can't find that for me? Because it's not there. all Israelite men were circumcised. According to
How do you know? How do you know?
They had to be circumcised.
No, they don't have to be. They don't have to be circumcised. They will get cut off.
Then why did not Joseph, but why did Joshua mess around and circumcise these men before they went into the promised land? Stop it.
Joshua did that because that's what the Torah recommended. But
okay, then that's my point. What is he talking about?
I'm gonna explain it to you if you let me explain it to you. What he's saying is this: when Yahuwah gave the northern kingdom a divorce, he issued them a divorce. What he's saying is when they got that divorce, that they became like the Gentiles. They went into a Gentile state of mind. So they didn't do the circumcisions and they didn't keep the customs that they kept when they got scattered into the Assyrian captivity. So
did it change their nationality?
Did it what?
Did it change their nationality? Did it change who they were by blood?
Not by blood.
That's not the argument I'm making. That's not the argument I'm making.
I'm not done. If it didn't change them by blood, I'm going to ask you, was the northern kingdom circumcised?
You don't know that. You can't say that.
I can't.
So you so you telling me God didn't give the northern and the southern kingdom, or actually they weren't even split apart. So you telling me God didn't give this covenant of Genesis 17 to all Israel?
To think all Israel. To think. I'll go ahead, Yehuda. Go ahead. Sorry.
This is what I'm saying, Sister Sherry. What he's trying to tell you is this: is that when they got kicked out of the covenant, when they got divorced, the northern kingdom got divorced. So what he's saying is that these guys went into a Gentile state of mind, like they wasn't keeping Hebraic customs. They were basically keeping the heathen customs. So they didn't do circumcision. Now, if you go to the book of Daniel, it said, but these guys, some of them ended up getting circumcised. It said that they would forsake the covenant of their fathers. So when Antiochus, he forbade the Jews to get circumcised, and also to forbid them for keeping the law. And he had them sacrificing swine on the altar. And this is what I'm saying. This is written in the historic books. It's written in Josephus, and it's written in the Apocrypha, to where the Jews, the southern kingdom, they wasn't getting their children circumcised. People were walking around uncircumcised. But the guy, what's his name, Judas Maccabee, he kind of put an end to that and started making something. When he found uncircumcised kids or uncircumcised people, he actually made them get circumcised, and they took the temple back. That's why you got the Purim, the Feast of Purim that the Israelites celebrate. I yield.
And that's a historical book. Even though you don't accept it as canon, that's still history.
He divorced Israel, but he actually offered them an extension to come back. It says in Jeremiah 3.
That is what Ephesians 2 and 11 is about. Offering Israel to come back into the fold as one nation instead of a divided nation. They continue to fight and fight and fight, and they're running in circles. And I'm about to wrap it up in a couple more minutes because this is going on an hour.
3:6. The Lord said to me in the days of King Josiah, have you seen what she did, the faithless one Israel? How she went up on every high hill and under every green tree, and they played the whore. And I thought, after she had done all this, she would return to me. But she did not return, and her treacherous sister Judah saw it. She saw that the adulteress of the faithless one Israel, I sent her away with a decree of divorce, yet her treacherous sister Judah did not fear, but she went and played the whore, because she took whoredom lightly. She plotted, she polluted the land, committed adultery with a stone and a tree. Yet, for all this, treacherous sister Judah did not return to me with the whole heart, but pretense, declares the Lord. And the Lord said to me, faithless Israel has shown herself more righteous than the treacherous Judah. Go and proclaim these words towards the north, and say, return, faithless Israel, declares the Lord. I will not look on your anger in anger, for I am merciful, declares the Lord. I will not be angry forever. Only acknowledge your guilt, that you rebelled against the Lord your God, and scattered you favors among foreigners under every green tree, that you do not obey my voice, declares the Lord. Return, O faithless children, declares the Lord, and for I am the master, and I will take you, one from a city and two from a family, and I will bring you to Zion, that's Jerusalem. And I will give you shepherds after my own heart, who will feed you with knowledge and understanding. And when you multiplied had been faithful in the land in those days, declares the Lord, they shall say no more, the ark of the covenant of the Lord, it shall not come to be in mind, or remember to miss.
Go into the book of Revelations and he starts talking about who his bride, you start seeing where the two houses are one, because he's naming the 12 tribes.
Chapter 33:9, and plenty of places in Chronicles that they came back to Jerusalem. Why would you stay away? Why would you stay away from a covenant if God extended and said, "Hey, if you come back, just admit your guilt"? That's all they had to do.
Yes, some of them came back, but you don't see him saying, "You're my people" or "You're my wife" until you go into the book of Revelations. When you go into the book of Revelations and he starts talking about who his bride, you start seeing where the two houses are one, because he's naming the 12 tribes.
Those two houses, yes, and he's also naming other nations as well. You're keeping this just down to Israel, and I showed you that.
I'm not. Listen. I'm not excluding Israel. I'm not excluding Gentiles or anything. What I'm saying is, compared to the prophecy that Brian is reading about the houses becoming one, that has not happened yet. Yes, some of the northern kingdoms came back, but you do not see the fulfillment yet with him saying that you were my people. You're not my people. Now you are my people again. We don't see that. We don't see King David resurrected yet too, because once the houses become one, the Mashiach is going to resurrect David, and he's going to be the king of Israel again, while the Messiah will be the Melchizedek king, the high priest and king. So we don't
Wait a minute. You saying that King David is going to be king over Israel again?
Yes, he's going to be resurrected.
I agree with that.
It's in Ezekiel. I'm telling you, he said, listen, when I put David...
Okay, so we're about to pause this into the next session. I think I proved my point as far as I need to, but we got 2 more compilations that are going to be coming out. Stay tuned for the next segment. G Checker signing out. Shalom.